Welcome back to Gerodynamics. My last video, I did a pretty good. I don't know what order I'm going to post them. So when I say my last video, the last video I recorded, we'll see what order I post them in. But I would like for this video to also be a relatively short video. So hopefully I stick to that. Again, yes, I ramble. So it might be a little longer than I'm expecting. But let's keep this as short and sweet as possible for those that like to watch short videos. What is the biggest problem that we face as a nation? What is the one change that we could make that would have the biggest impact? And I mean like across the aisles, so not just from, a conservative libertarian perspective, but from all political persuasions. What one change would benefit us the most? And us, I mean the citizens of this country, the non-elites, the non-politicians. What would benefit us the most? It fixes so many problems, problems that people will argue and debate about for long periods of time. But all of them would be solved by this one solution: term limits. Okay. Hear me out for just a little bit. When I say term limits, I mean term limits on everybody. We already have term limits on the president. We should have term limits on both the House and the Senate. We should have a term limit on Supreme Court justices. They don't run for re-election, but we could have a length of time that would be their term, right? Instead of a lifetime appointment. We need term limits on bureaucrats. We need term limits on appointees. We need term limits on everybody. If we were able to get term limits on everybody in the government, right? If we were able to get term limits on everybody in the government, and when I say that now, I'm like thinking maybe that's a little aggressive, but because there's all the way down to the people working at the different agencies. Maybe not, but the leadership at least, right? But even maybe like figuring out a way to make government so small that there's no government employees that need more than a term, or a term limit, that sort of thing. Anyways, see, tangent, rambling. But term limits. I think term limits solve so many problems, and it's not just one side of the aisle's problems, it's everybody's problems. It's also an issue that is very popular across the board. You can find agreement on term limits with someone that you couldn't find agreement with for most issues. Vast majority of issues you would not agree on, you will agree with them on term limits. Most people want term limits to be applied. They just disagree with the specifics of it. So, that's obviously the hard part. The other hard part is it absolutely would have to be a constitutional amendment. And obviously passing a constitutional amendment is very hard. However, with an issue that is so popular as this, that's how they did it the last time with presidents. It was an issue that was so popular, the people did not want another FDR. They absolutely did not want another FDR. And to prevent that from happening, it was so popular, they were able to get a constitutional amendment passed. And the reason it probably only impacted the president is because they got it passed through Congress, which is the typical way that amendments are passed. So obviously Congress is not going to assert it onto themselves as well. So to get this to happen, it probably has to be a convention of states, which becomes very very controversial in and of itself. But there's a lot of details about that you should look into. A convention of the states is not as extreme as it sounds. It can definitely be narrowed down to just this one issue. You can have a convention of the states for one issue, and as long as the the percentages, and I don't have them off the top of my head. I think it's like 3/4 or something like that, right? Of states agree, then we can get this passed. So, anyways, term limits would solve vast amounts of our problems. It would get money out of politics in a large amount of way. It would cause us to actually get the politicians we vote for, because the politicians will not have really that much time to change and be corrupted by the system. And we can see different takes on governance, right? You're not just this constant like battle between two parties that no one really likes. Everybody just kind of settles on these two main parties. Term limits is the answer, and hopefully that's something that can move forward at some point. If we could, we can. A big issue right now is, from the left, because I always want to try to touch on that, is, getting some sort of ethics code on the Supreme Court justices. Well, they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to accomplish that. But if you limited the term of the Supreme Court justices, it kind of resolves that problem without that. So, like I said, the one issue that resolves the most other issues is term limits. My big problem is partisanship. I'm so opposed to the political parties and to that concept of partisanship. That's what I base a lot of my views on, and I think that term limits would go a long way to solving that problem as well. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Another relatively short video. Hopefully you enjoyed. And yeah, if you did, like, subscribe, leave a comment so we can talk about it. Let me know what you guys think as far as term limits. I know the big question, or the big, counter to term limits is, well, we get to vote. Well, we don't get to vote on everybody. And also, once you get into power, if you don't have a term limit, it's much easier to keep power. Okay, so voting only does so much. And we want them to represent us. So, the longer they're there, the more likely they are to represent the political parties that help them keep their power, as opposed to representing us. It's a representative government, after all. Anyways, that's that. All right, everybody, take care. Have a good day.